Okay, I think I'm recording. My name is Jeremiah Aarons. I am the CQI analyst for the Plains to Peaks RETAC. I have volunteered to speak to you today as part of the virtual conference about something that's kind of near and dear to my heart, which is provider fatigue. First and foremost, I apologize for the interface. This is the first time that I've recorded a lecture on Zoom, and I don't have the feedback of talking to all of you face to face, which is kind of the nature of this lecture. So I'm not quite sure how it's going to turn out. So I ask for you to bear with me. Today we're going to talk about provider fatigue and how it relates to or rather how the COVID-19 pandemic has exacerbated provider fatigue. And what I mean by provider fatigue is basically how tired and how frustrated and the effects that the pandemic has weighed on us as frontline providers. A little bit about me. I am a paramedic firefighter for the city of Colorado Springs. I've been with them since 2006. Before that, I was a paramedic for AMR El Paso County since 1998. I'm 44 years old, and I've been a paramedic since I was 21 years old. And I come to you because this concept of fatigue amongst us as frontline providers has affected me greatly. It's the first time in my career that going to work, that responding to calls has not been the enjoyable experience that I've known it to be. Now, we all have bad days, and we all get frustrated with a frequent flyer or the person that calls 911 for, let's be honest, reasons that they shouldn't. But it's the first time that I just did not want the alarm to go off. And I examined that and was like, what's going on? Why do I feel this way? And again, this being the first time that I'm on Zoom, you can see my daughter's cat in the background. So I apologize for that. So, well, first and foremost, look, we wear these masks. I actually am looking at myself and realizing that I have the mask on. I'm going to break down today into kind of three sections. The first section being the obvious, which is the COVID-19 pandemic. We're going on a year now. This started in March of last year, and it came with a bunch of uncertainties. We didn't really know what was headed our way. Depending on your political affiliation or who you choose to believe, you already had your preconceived notions of how bad or how horrible or not it was going to be. And then it hit us, and we went from running our normal day-to-day calls to basically being the frontline individuals of the great unknown. And I have to hand it to my organization. They did well as far as educating us on what to expect and how to protect ourselves and to protect our family. But information was depending on the source that you went to, you could find whatever information you wanted about the pandemic. Regardless of all that, it came and it's been here, and now we're a year past. And first and foremost, I want to say thank you. thank you to everybody that works in our Plains to Peaks RETAC, from Teller County to Kit Carson, Cheyenne, and Lincoln County. Thank you for doing your best, for still responding, for not calling in sick, for still respecting your oath, understanding your commitment, and responding to alarms. It doesn't make it any easier on us. I don't know what your individual situations are. I have 4 children, and my spouse is in the field also. And we were concerned and worried about how we were going to bring it back to our family and what it meant as far as decon procedures, and how far do we take the precautions that were set out there. I mean, masks are easy, but I remember when all of a sudden I became a high school teacher, a junior high teacher, an elementary school teacher, and a paramedic, and a father, and a husband. At first it was novel, kind of interesting to watch the world shut down. But after a while, it started to wear on me. The weight of having to respond to citizens that call 911 that are just as scared as we are, along with everything that we have going on in our personal lives, created a provider in me that was tired, wore out, and frankly frustrated. Again, I'm going to be kind of all over the place with this, and I won't take up much of your time. Let's talk about protocols, guidelines, changes. I'm not sure about your organization, but not only do we get the pandemic protocols that come out right away with all the PPE that we have to use, immediately our guidelines are changed. So now for the first time, we're leaving individuals at home that are ill under the guidelines of the COVID-19 restrictions. Now, this isn't commentary on what the physicians decided. Here in El Paso County, our physicians between Bronski and Angelitis, and they're fantastic. And Banks, and I apologize if I left anybody out, but they did a phenomenal job to streamline our jobs. But for any of you old timers out there, I don't know if you know what the paramedic initiated refusal is, but it's kind of like the Holy Grail. It never really existed until the pandemic came along, because just a year ago, if somebody stubbed their toe and they wanted to go to the hospital and they wanted to tie up an ambulance, we could convince them, or we could encourage them not to use the resources. But in the end, if they wanted to go, we transported them. But here we are with someone that is possibly infected with the disease, and we leave them at home because their vitals are within and their pulse ox within, and they need to quarantine at home, which in the event of a pandemic, it's what needed to happen. But the paramedic in me was torn. It was confused, because all of a sudden I can leave these individuals at home, but a year ago I couldn't leave the stubbed toe at home, or I should say, deny them service. So guideline changes came fast and furious. For us in El Paso County, it came with a very large change with the cardiac arrest protocol. And it was difficult. Came with, if you were over 74 years old and you exhibited signs or had previous signs of the COVID disease, or COVID virus rather, and you were asystole and apneic, we didn't work you. We left you. CPR became the #1 tool in our bag. Again, 22 years as a medic, I remember having 40 plus drugs in our box, and it got limited down to like 13. The PPE that we had to wear, still wear every day. I smile because I come to you. It's April the 8th, and it's Thursday morning, and I just got off of a shift, and I'm exhausted, and I'm here talking to you about fatigue. So I think that's kind of timely. But wearing the PPE, wearing the appropriate gown, the mask, the eye protection, face shields, whatever your organization had. Hopefully everybody in our RETAC had the appropriate PPE. But what that PPE does is it creates a barrier. I felt like a robot. I felt like I walked in and I couldn't relate to a lot of my patients. I felt like I had this shield and I was like this. And so all they could see was my eyes. And the human element was taken away. The human element of being there for our patients during the time of need was taken away due to the PPE. And I understood, and I still understand why we have it. Initially, I think in March and April and May and even June, July, and I'm just speaking for myself, I was there and I was on board and, you know, plugging away, wearing my PPE, you know, watching the pandemic numbers come up, come down, waiting for the vaccine to come. And now in April, you know, 13 months later, I'm still wearing the PPE. Things have lightened up. Our vaccinations are doing great in the state of Colorado. And I'm very happy that I see an end in sight. But what's left? And that's kind of what I wanted to address is what's left with us as healthcare providers. I speak to a lot of my colleagues on a daily basis, and the way I feel, run down, frustrated, wore out. What's left? I have 10 more years left in my career, and a lot of you have more years. What do we have left to give after this? I know I have a lot, and I know they have a lot. It's time to take a minute and to just focus on us. I want to tell you that there are resources out there. There's resources for EMS providers. In fact, the State House of Colorado just passed a bill, State Bill 19065, I believe, that provides free emergency care. And I apologize as I walk around. Free emergency care, healthcare. For us, it's called the PATH for EMS. It provides for, regardless of organization, regardless of affiliation, i.e. volunteer, professional, a combination department, fire, EMS, hospital-based, it doesn't matter. PATH for EMS approves free and confidential services for us to go get out the stuff we need to talk about. For those of you that are looking at me saying, I'm fine, it was no big deal. And maybe it wasn't. And that's fantastic. Maybe the pandemic, and I'm not putting everything on the pandemic. The pandemic's just a great time to talk about this. Unfortunately, it's during these large events that we get thought of. And when I say we, the 911 responders, after the tragedy, we get thought of because of course, the citizens and the civilians and all the users of 911, they come first. So I would just ask you that you look around, you look at yourself, you take an honest inventory of how you're feeling about everything. And I wish I could come out there and speak to each one of you and let you know that those worries, which I just touched on a few, those gripes, that they resonate with throughout all of us. And I keep telling myself, I go, this isn't a Colorado Springs thing. This isn't a Colorado thing. It's not even a United States thing. It's a world thing. And the number of us that are out there just doing our jobs, because that's what we do, that it's okay to take a breath. It's okay to take a minute and do some self-assessment and be like, hey, what do I need? I started out by saying that, it kind of hit me, and it has, is because I never was one of those providers that got frustrated or griped about going on alarms. I love going on alarms. I still do. And I had to do a lot of self-searching, like what happened? And a lot of it is what I addressed. I think it was the fact that I had some tools. I don't want to say taken away from me. I had some guidelines changed. I had my best tool, which I feel is my ability to connect on the human side, taken away from me by the PPE. And then I had just the environment, the environment of, never thought I would have taken any of this home. If I had a bad day, I speak to my people, my friends, I decompress and from the hard calls. But this is a pandemic. And so I would just go on, I don't know, run 4 calls in a shift, and I'm just being exposed. And so all of a sudden I'm like, what am I taking home to my family? And, changing in my garage and spraying myself down because I don't want to infect anybody that I care about. And I have people in my family that, my parents specifically, that are in that high risk group. And I didn't see my mom and dad for a year because I didn't want to expose them due to my career choice. And so no one's exempt from the effects of this. And it is okay, because we're going to live to fight another day, and we're going to keep on responding to our alarms. But we deserve to take care of ourselves. And so I just wanted to say you're not alone. I wish I knew how to use this interface better so I could put up some phone numbers for you, but I'll make sure that I have the link on the Plains to Peak website. And if any of you out there want to talk more about it, want to need an ear, don't feel like they're being heard, need a liaison between your physician advisor, I'm here, or I can point you in the right direction. Until then, I say thank you. And I'm sure you've all been thanked a million times, and kind of shrug your shoulders like it's my job, because that's what I do. The biggest compliment that I can receive is from a colleague. So from one colleague to another, thank you. I know what you're going through, and you guys made 2020 bearable. And we're almost done. We're going to get through this. So God bless and thank you.